Good afternoon. Right, today I'm going to talk to you about prototyping pumpkins. As you are aware, we created a game for Halloween that we spent, as a group of us got together and we had an awful lot of fun creating this game and then even playing the game, and even we had a winner somewhere. Where are you, Nat? He squashed the most pumpkins. Okay, so this all started off, I bought this, which is a Microsoft Kinect controller. This has a camera and infrared sensor on it, and it gathers visual and depth information. Okay, so this is normally connected to like an Xbox gaming machine, and it allows you to be the controller, so it can track your body, your skeleton, how you move, and you and multiple other people. So I'd had this, and then I thought, well, let's see if we can create a game using it. So I sketched this up. Okay, so this is our character who's going to run backwards and forwards and try and catch some pumpkins. Now, this is great. How do I do it? What am I going to use? What tools am I going to use to create this? So we had a look around and we looked at and found Unity. So what is Unity? Well, this is probably going to be quite foolish, but I'm going to show you what Unity is. All right, so this is a project, so I'm going to try and create a game whilst I'm doing this talk. So, and I'd probably best if I put my glasses on, as I won't be able to see a thing to type. Okay, so Unity is a development environment that allows you to create games. These can be 2D, 3D, they can also be played on multiple devices. It'll be Mac, PC, your phone. You can use it for the HoloLens, for augmented reality. There's all sorts of things you can do with it, you can create. So hopefully this will start up any second now. Here we are. So this is the development environment. In the middle here you have your scene, which you see is currently empty. There's nothing there. This is where our game's going to be. You can see two objects in there, two game objects. It's a camera and a light source. So this is just the light that's going to be in the game, and where the camera is, which is your viewpoint in the game. So on the far left-hand side, there's the list of items in the game on this particular scene, and on the right-hand side, there is the inspector, which gives you information about the game. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in some assets. These are all freely available from the asset store, so I'm just going to import those. So the process we're going to take now is called whiteboxing, is where we use primitive objects, white boxes, to create our game. So we're going to try it out, say, is this game viable? Will it work? How does it play? So the idea being we can very quickly put something together, give it a quick play test, and then decide, yes, this is working, let's go ahead with this. So hopefully those are all now imported. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we take the original design, get a piece of paper, and we sketch it out. Okay? So this is now looking, if you can't see it on the paper, okay, so it should look a bit like that. So we have a game area we're going to play in. Around the game area there's a fence to stop the character running off, and then some details in the background. Now this is just the initial sketch. We don't need to stick to this at all. So this is just what we thought we would start with. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a 3D object and I'm going to insert a plane. This is just an area within the game that we're going to put things on. I'm also going to bring in something which you may have seen a moment ago, which is it's an image of that drawing. I just took it with my phone, emailed it to myself, brought it in. So we've got an area we can play the game in. So I'm just going to put our camera, and I've got this memorised, that's off the top of my head where the position is. So I'm putting its transform. It's an area in space. We're going to have the camera. Okay, so we've got coordinates X, Y, and Z. We then have rotation, and we also have scale, so things can get smaller and larger than their normal size. Okay, so you can see there on the bottom right-hand side there's a game preview, and we're going to align that to that view. So there you can see our game area. Okay, so we've now got everything. So I'm going to use some standard assets. These are freely available from the asset store, which is provided by Unity, and there we have a game character I brought into it. Let me just, whoops. Okay, so what we're going to do here, just put them roughly there, okay, and now we can actually play the game. So I switched from the scene view to the game view. So the scene view is where you design it, and the game is actually where we can play it. So in here, we can actually run around and we can jump off the edge. Brilliant. Now, this is why we put walls in. All right, so let's go back to our design. Okay, so in our space here, we're going to add our first white box. It's just a cube. There we go. We bring it in. We're going to put it where that fence is roughly. And then we're going to transform it. We're going to make it. We're going to stretch it. So we're going to stretch it out that way, and then squash it that way, and then drag it up a bit that way. So we've got a wall now that the player can't get over. We can just cut and paste that, and we can then duplicate it, and we've got another one. Okay, we can duplicate that one again, and we've got another one. All right, so I'm now going to just rotate that one around there. Just check that. Yeah, there we go, and do the same thing to this one. Bear with me 2 seconds. There we go. I forget how to do this. There we go. Whoops. Just drag it that way a bit. So you can drag these around and position them in space, and then just put them there. Okay, and then we're going to take this one, and we are just going to zoom out a bit. Oh, that one's gone completely up the spout, so we'll just delete that. There we go. Go. Duplicate that one again. There we go. And this one we're now just going to, again, we're going to scale it, make it longer, and just position it. Right. Okay, so this one though we don't really want to see, so we're going to turn off the renderer. So it's not visible, but the collider, which is what you walk into, a wall, is still visible. So now we've got an area where our game player can run around in, but he can't escape from. So the next thing we know we need to bring in though is, okay, so those have actually been made child's bar. Just bring them out here as I'll run around with the character, which wouldn't be good. So I'm now going to bring in a sphere. So this is our pumpkin, believe it or not. Okay, so let's grab hold of the sphere. Where are you, Mr. Sphere? And it is not letting me delete it for some reason. Go. All right, so we'll create an on again, 3D object, sphere. Let's put it right down there. Oh, I know what's going on. So, okay, so there's our sphere. Okay, it's a bit big. Let's bring it up a bit. We're going to scale it down a bit because it's a bit large. Okay, and then you can see in here we've got a sphere there. It's still a bit big. We'll scale it down a bit more. And then just bring it back here. So here's our sphere, but it's not looking very useful. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to grab an image I've got prepared. And this is head forwards. There we are. So we've got a nice big giant head on our ball. So this is our pumpkin. Okay, so the idea of this is the game, the player's going to be standing there, these pumpkins are going to be falling out of the sky around our player. Okay, so for this to be affected by gravity, we need to add a component to it, a rigid body. Okay, and I'm also going to change the material from just being nothing to rubber. So in theory, it should now bounce as it hits the ground. And as I said, we're going to want lots of these, so we're going to want to create many of them. So let's, rather than doing that every time and having them all made, let's create a resources folder, copy our sphere into there, okay, and let's rename it to be pumpkin. Okay, so we've now got something we can reuse. So there's our pumpkin, there's another pumpkin we just drop into the scene. You see, there we go, and drop more in. Yay, we have as many as we like. Brilliant. All right, so we're going to delete those for the starters. We don't need them at the moment. Okay, so no pumpkins. Right, so what we need though is we need a way of getting pumpkins into our game. So to do that, we actually need to write a bit of C# script. Okay, so this is where we're going to spawn our pumpkins, where we create them. Okay, so we're going to use Visual Studio to actually write our script. It should open up in just a second. Okay, inside this, when you create a script, there's two methods. There's start and update. Start happens when your script is first created. Update happens every frame of the game. We don't need the update for this, so we're just going to delete that out for the moment. Okay, so we're going to create a script for creating our pumpkin. So we're going to have an I enumerator, and it's going to spawn a pumpkin. Okay. So our pumpkin we need to do a couple of things with. Okay, we want to move it within space so it rains down around our player, and we also want it to appear to rain randomly. So that's a time between pumpkins appearing and a position in space. So we're going to have a couple of variables. We're going to have one that I could learn how to spell. My typing's gone to flip. So we're going to have a distance that our pumpkin is going to appear within, and we're going to have a minimum delay for the pumpkin for it to appear. Right. And this is a delay in seconds, so 0.1 of a second, and then we're going to have a maximum value of somewhere around, shall we say, 1 second. Okay, so now we can use these as starting points for randomizing that. So the first thing we're going to do is this I enumerator is something, think of it as a threaded thing, so we can call this again and again and again without affecting the game. So this we're going to do a, if I can remember how to spell yield, obviously not. Wait for seconds. We're going to get it to wait for seconds, okay? And we're going to do a random range, okay? So this is between our minimum delay and our maximum delay. Yep, I shall go back. I before E. All right. Okay, so that's going to pause the script for a time delay between 0.1 and 1 of a second. Then we need to get the position of our pumpkin. Okay, so this script will be attached to a game object, which we have access to. Okay, the game object is a point in space. To tell it where it is within the game world, it has a transform, which we saw earlier, and that transform will have a position value. Okay, so we've now got a position. We can then take the x value, for instance, and we can add a value to it. So we're going to go for our distance, times it by -1 to make it negative, so it's from a -2 to a +2. Okay, and then we will take the same thing, but move the x. So the x is going to be left and right, basically, and the z is in and out of the game. All right. So we now have it appearing with a given time and in a given place, but we haven't actually created anything. So we are now going to instantiate, which is where we create an object, and we're going to load our pumpkin in, which I need to spell correctly. Okay, we then need to put it into the world in a certain position. And if you remember rightly, I said that there's a rotation as well, but we're not going to use anything there. So we're just going to inherit from our parent game object and just take that position in space. Okay, we then need to call this script again. Okay, because we want to have more than one pumpkin. And of course, what we need to do is we need to call it at least once right at the very beginning. All right. So in theory, we now save that. If we drop back to Unity, on the bottom right-hand corner, you see it's spinning. That's just showing it's compiling the script. So we are now going to create an empty object within our game world. Let's rename that so we know what we call it. This is our spawn point. Okay. So we can put this anywhere within the game. You see there, I'm just moving it around. But what we'll do is we'll just put that somewhere. So 0, so it should be somewhere above the head of our player. Okay, that should be just about directly over the top of our game player. So if we have a look up, we should see it, there it is. So that's where our pumpkins will appear, but randomized in time. Okay, so we're going to take our script, attach it to the spawn point. You can see here we've got some delays. Those are the properties we added. So we can adjust those. All right, so let's play that and see what happens. So there's our player, and there's some pumpkins. Look, yay, we've got things we can interact with. Brilliant. And we can also adjust these delays, time and distance. So we can bring these down and see what happens, and we get, ooh, a lot of pumpkins. All right. So we've now got our player interacting with pumpkins falling out of the sky. But we need to do something else. Now, for this to be a game, we need to add another script. So this script is the collision script. So this is what happens when our player hits a pumpkin or catches a pumpkin. Okay, so again, we've got start and update, but we don't actually need either of those for this. Okay, but we need something. We need to have a count. Okay, so we can keep a track of how many pumpkins we've caught. And we're going to have a text property, so we can show the player how many pumpkins have they caught. And so that can be part of the UI. Okay, and then we're going to override an event to on collision enter. So this is when our whatever this script is attached to collides with an object in the game. So we're going to hope that our pumpkin is going to be our collision game object. Okay, but we better check it is a pumpkin because it could be the ground, it could be a wall, who knows what it could be. So we're going to check that the name of the object we're attaching is a pumpkin. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we've collided with a pumpkin. We know that it's a pumpkin. So let's increment our count. Okay, and then we're going to take our text. It's probably not the right name for it. Score would probably be a better name, but we'll call it text. Dot text. So we're going to have a string. It's going to say score. You have caught so many pumpkins. Okay, so now update. We've counted how many pumpkins. We've updated a piece of text with it, but we've still got these pumpkins on screen. So we then need to get rid of the pumpkins. So we're going to destroy the pumpkin that we've collided with. Okay. So in theory, that's all the code written for this game. If we now go back in here, so we've got our collision script. Our collision script we're going to attach to our character once it's finished compiling. Okay, if we now click on our character, you can see down here is our collision script, and it's got a text field property on it. So we're going to add some UI in here now. We're going to add a bit of text. Let's make it nice and visible so you can see it. This is going to say score of 0 to start with. Let's bang the font size up a bit, and we'll need to increase the size of those. So I sort of know where this is going to be. So if we double click, here's our canvas, there's our score. If we look at it somewhere around the middle, we want our score to be somewhere. This is the UI where this will be. So if we now flip to our game, we should see a score there. Okay, we haven't though assigned that text field to our object here, our collision script. So in theory, we should now be able to start the game. Our player will be able to run around, run into a pumpkin, pumpkin disappears and our score goes up. So we have a playable game already. Excellent. But this is sort of the white boxing. We know it's playable, but this, to be honest, doesn't look particularly brilliant, does it, at the moment? So let's add a bit more scenery in here. Go back to our view. Where's the plane gone? There it is. All right, so we're going to add in an object now. So I'm going to bring in a tree. I like trees. Okay, it's a big tree. Okay, so let's give it some branches. It's only got one. We could do a few more than that. So there you go. Lots of branches. We can angle these up a bit. We can make them a bit more crinkly. So it's starting to look like a spooky tree. Remember, this is a Halloween game, but it's still a bit big. So what we're going to do now is scale it down. Remember the transform, we can increase the scale of things up and down. So we now have a game, but with the trees. But one tree isn't very good, is it? So let's duplicate it. We've got 2 trees now, and I'm just going to use these to position it so we can move it around in space. We can rotate it, and we can then move it backwards and forwards. Okay, let's go and have a look over there. Is that? Oh, that's about right. And let's create another one. Not that one, that one. So we've got another tree. Put this one over here. Okay. Whoops. And one more. We'll just move this one back though. Oops, there we go. Oops, missed it. Okay, so we've now got some trees in our games. It's all starting to look a bit spooky. They could probably do them rotate. So if you rotate them and scale them, you can use the same object again and again, and it won't look the same to the player, which is great. So you can reuse things. Okay, the directional light. So this doesn't look very nice because the shadows are sort of heading away from us. We can just very quickly, though, bring this around. So we bring the light around. So now you see the light coming around. So we're starting to get shadows. So it's starting to look a bit more spooky, a bit more night time. Let's change the colour of the light, add a bit of blue into it. So it's starting to get a bit darker here. Okay, but let's go and get some extras here. So what I've brought to do is I've got some simple textures here. So we can add these to our game objects. It's just a little, these are just basically JPEGs. Okay, this is a brick, I guess you can't get where that's going to go. We've got a wall. And we've now got some grass. Okay, so this is starting to look a bit better. Oh, I missed that one, never mind. Okay, but this is playable, but doesn't look particularly brilliant. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some special effects. So we're going to create what's called a post-processing profile. Okay, I'm going to choose a few of these that we're going to use. This sort of adds some special effects afterwards. So you don't really see much in the scene, but you will see it more in the game. Okay, so that script has been created. I'm then going to attach a post-processing behavior to our screen, to our camera. Okay, and we're going to choose that script. You should now see that it's starting to be affected slightly differently. Then going to go back into our game view where you can get a better view of what's going on. I'm going to go to our main window where we had lighting settings. I like to have a bit of fog because I think it looks a bit more atmospheric. Okay. And I'm also going to bring in a script onto that because the fog, I think, sort of needs a little bit of help. Okay, there we go. That's a nice proper foggy. All right. So if we now go back to our script, we can then change this. So we can make it all a bit darker. We maybe reduce the grain a bit. We can then color grade this quite quickly. So now it's more blue. Looks a bit better. Okay, and we've got depth of field, which gives us, it's very much like a camera. So we can now bring the focus of something. And let's bring our player into focus. Where are you, Mr. Player? There you are. So our player's in focus and the rest of the screen's all blurry. Now, what we can also do, remember we used a single pumpkin. Okay. Now, I think what really brings the game to life is some sound. So we're going to take an audio source, we're going to attach it to our pumpkin, we're going to find a clip, which is a laugh. So when this pumpkin appears, it'll laugh at us. I'm also going to go to our main camera, I'm going to add an audio source here as well. Okay, and we'll put on here a clip, very kindly produced by John, and we'll loop that clip. Okay, let me just tweak the volume on that slightly. So now we should have what's looking like a proper game. So let's put this up for a full size on screen. Okay, so hopefully we should have a very loud game. Okay, so there you are, a playable game in 20 minutes. Any questions? No.
Some orange light.
Some orange light. Yeah. And the great thing with the lights is you can do all sorts of things with it. I've done very simple, just use a single directional light. You can use multiple light sources, you can change things around, you can make things a lot darker and then push a blue light into the shadows to lift things up. I've learned so much. We started this, and in about 6 weeks we then created our first game. And in that time period we learned so much about how to create the games, how to visualize things and what you could do with them very quickly. It's been a really interesting journey and a lot of fun. So I'd recommend everybody having a go at it.
How long did it take? So I know you're doing some lunch times, but do you need some other time, or spare evenings or whatever?
I did a bit in the evenings and then just so I could figure out what needs to be done. But as you can see there, once you know what needs to be done, it's not a complicated procedure. We only wrote a few lines of code. Anybody else in this room could probably type that 15 times faster. But there we are. So yeah, Unity available for free. And the game we actually wrote is also available on GitHub. Have all of you seen the game?
No.
So this is a clip recorded. So what I'd like to know for a bit more time is we could have used the controller to control that character within the game. And then what we did with that in our 6 weeks, here is a little video clip of the game being played. So, should play? Is it going to play? There we go. Right. Okay, so this is the character. The controller's picked up the person. They've raised their hand to start the game, and the game comes in and you can play it. So we've used, obviously, more models that we've found, again, for free off the internet. The character and the pumpkins were made by James in Blender. Excellent job. And John, there we are, very kindly produced the music for us. Okay, but it was a lot of fun. So it's very simple. The idea was squash as many pumpkins as you could within 30 seconds. A lot of fun.